Welcome to the Success Revenue Podcast, the only podcast in the Middle East that brings you leaders in customer success, account management, sales, and go to market to share ideas, perspectives, and valuable learnings on how to successfully drive revenue, delight customers, and take it to the next level.
We're your hosts. I'm Haider Al-Saad, CEO of RepSetter, the modern customer management platform. And with me, I have my lovely co-host, Ivy Ferrero, CS executive, speaker and advisor. And we're going to be more excited to bring you a long list of exciting guests every week this season. Today's guest is someone that we're really excited to talk about and talk with. He is a tenured consultant, executive. He's been in the cloud management space in Europe and now in the Middle East, dating back several years, working with both large enterprises, growing companies, and in the past with government agencies as well. So he brings a ton of knowledge, ton of experience, especially on the cloud side of things and technology implementation and furthering infrastructure for companies. So very excited to get into this conversation today. A couple of the takeaways that you'll take with you is around how putting 51% focus on the customer and 49% on the company can help you be more customer-centric. We'll speak about the importance of building relationships and trust before doing business when it comes to the Middle East region and culture here. And then, of course, we'll jump into the impact of AI on enterprises, their cloud management going into the future, and the importance of data in terms of that topic. So, Ivy, super excited for today's conversation and excited for another episode of the pod. One of the things that is kind of struck me, and I want to right away get your take on this. Been here now for 4, 5, 6 months in the UAE. You've been here longer. There's a lot of expats from the UK and coming from that market and Europe, of course, and America. But from the UK, there's a lot of expats in Dubai, and today's guest is one of those. There seems to be a lot of synergy between those kind of businesses. So kind of that transition coming from that market into the Middle East region seems to be one that a lot of people make. Have you noticed that as well since you arrived, a year plus ago?
Yeah, Hater. And I've met so many sweet people that are from the UK. And when I first got here, I realized quickly that there were so many people from the UK here. And that's when a couple of my colleagues told me that because the weather is a little gloomy in the UK,
Yeah.
so people love the weather here and people are constantly out doing stuff, which is something that they don't actually get in the UK. So yeah, it's been amazing. Although I have never been to UK myself, I have met many amazing people from the UK living here.
Yeah, no, it's great. I've been there a bunch, especially to London, and it's interesting. I was talking to someone the other week, and we were kind of talking about kind of the connection actually between the UK and the UAE, and it actually goes back to the 70s, 80s, 90s. A lot of the kind of consultants that came and worked with the Emirati leaders and governments in terms of a lot of the projects came from the UK. So I think there's some kind of deep-rooted connections and business relationships between the two as well, and I think that can kind of continue. And of course, the weather aspect, as someone that grew up in cold weather in Europe and then moved to nice warm weather in the US for most of my life, I definitely can relate to the fact that you want to get out of the cold and the gloomy weather and get into the beautiful sunshine of Dubai and Abu Dhabi and the UAE in general here. That's a big piece too. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm super excited for today's conversation. Digging into cloud, I think this will be kind of the most expert guest that we'll have on cloud specifically and driving big technology projects with enterprises. So yeah, I want to jump right into the conversation with today's guest. What do you say? Do you want to bring him in?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's bring him in.
Awesome, go for it.
I am so excited to introduce today's guest in our podcast, This is somebody I've been trying to hang out for the very long time, but he's always too busy to hang out with me. I'm excited to have in this podcast today Joseph Woolrych. He is a people person at heart with a love for tech. He took a leap from corporate life to a fast paced world of tech startup, now leading Cloudworks, a growing tech consultancy company in Dubai, a new COO figuring out as he goes. So, welcome. I am so excited to have you on the podcast, Joe. If you want to get us started by telling us a little bit more of where you're from, where are you based, and a little bit more of your story of how you ended up in the customer success department.
Yeah, sure. Oh, thank you guys. It's really good to be on here. Um, so Joe, I short for Joseph. So I pretty much moved to Dubai 4 years ago. I'm from the UK, and in the UK, I kind of worked across marketing. I worked across events, and then I started slowly going into kind of consulting, and then project management, and then along the way, I kept on moving around certain kind of companies, government departments, big, huge enterprise. And then I worked as a consultant, being outsourced into FSIs and enterprise. And then before you know it, I saw the potential in Dubai and finally then decided to move to Dubai. We looked at opportunities here, and with the growth and innovation in Dubai, it was like, why not? And as I moved over to Dubai, I still kept all of the consulting kind of, I would say, program management kind of role capabilities. I moved here into a big corporate consulting firm, and then I worked there for 2.5 years, and I focused pretty much more on account management. And that's where I started building out customer success. And I started building out kind of what I actually thrive in terms of the environments and speaking to people. And then long and behold, I then moved to a small tech startup, which took me away from the huge, big, I like to say the analogies of you're on a huge, big ferry ship in the corporate world and you're all your one direction for that particular 12 years. it's hard, it's hard to move. And then in a startup mode, you're on a speedboat and you're going which any direction it needs to take you. So I moved into the startup mode, and long and behold, I went into the customer success role. Supporting the key accounts, supporting kind of the people on the ground of pushing kind of further along their customer journey within Cloudworks. And then recently they promoted me to the chief operating officer for the region. So I now kind of head up a team of operations and also key accounts that we really like to drive home our customer success. So overall, that's where the journey kind of fizzled out.
Wow, incredible. And Joe, with all of your experience that you've had navigating the cultural differences here in this region, and I'm sure you have clients that are located in different regions in the Middle East, what are your thoughts of customer success in the Middle East?
I always go by the mindset of people by people. So I know it's quite simple, but it is very effective here. I've seen from the UK European mindset, it's more around the tech solution. End of the day, they really just want to buy the solution, fill their need, and long behold, get on with their kind of process or business. Out here, people really want to nurture the relationships before they even consider any kind of solution that's on the table. And it's building their trust within that environment of when you're first meeting that person to the point, the end of that kind of sales cycle, or not even to the end of the sales cycle, to the end of the project life cycle. Literally, as soon as you walk in that door, it's more around greeting them in their culture, in their environment, understanding their kind of their ways of working and of how they're thinking, and then building that relationship and building that trust. Coming in straight away to pitch a solution doesn't really fly here. I like to shake your hand first. I like to go out for coffee first, and then you slowly nurture and build up that relationship. And that's really, really the big change. And to be honest with you, I'm a much of a people person, so that really falls in my bracket of dealing with business and dealing with people. However, I've seen it go the other side. When you pitch, you don't really get the follow-up. You don't really get the next steps from that particular customer or from that new particular kind of business. It's more so of just continuous to build up that relationship, understand what their core problems are, rather than telling them they need a solution. And that's where they listen to you.
That's super interesting, Joe. And again, we're so excited to have you on here too, because I think you'll bring a lot of cool perspectives, right? Having the consulting background and kind of being in other markets, coming to Dubai and the UAE and the kind of Middle East market, and now having CS account management. So you have a kind of nice spectrum of things. I was kind of curious. Speak to me about kind of your role today, right? So you're the COO at Cloudworks, new in the role, which is super exciting. And again, congrats on that kind of next step in the career. How do you kind of get all that together, right? With operations, account management, CS. I assume you have customers a little bit in different places across the region. Just tell us a little more about your role and kind of how that all comes together for you.
Yeah, like Ivy said at the start, figuring out as I go along. But overall, it's all about the people in your team, the right people in the right roles, doing the right jobs, and fulfilling that kind of stream, so to speak. Because there's a holistic view from an operations perspective. Obviously, you've got the actual account performance, which sits across sales and more kind of customer success. If it's an ongoing project, you've got the project that's obviously been delivered, and that does also sit across customer success, but then operations, and then it's also kind of the maintenance of that account, make sure we can actually upsell as well as deliver a good kind of project, so to speak. So it's always about having the right people in the right roles fundamentally, and having trust within in them people. I'm currently figuring out how it kind of the transition, because at the moment I was very dedicated on certain set of accounts, and now I'm dedicated across operational for the business, but also still dedicated on certain set of accounts. And bringing all of that together, my view at the moment is focused most importantly, my approach is work 51% for the customer, 49% for the business. So that's a breakdown I've always had. And that always puts the customer at the forefront of what you essentially need to do. If customers obviously happy, then I can focus more on the operation side. And it's always just listening and making sure the people in the team understand what they're doing. So certain people heading up kind of the PMO function, certain people heading up the operational processes within the company, certain people heading up the accounts, and also then funneling into me, and I support some strategic accounts. And really, it's just about the delegation. If you're a good delegator and you articulate yourself in what needs to be done and the outcomes of what needs to be done, and you show the results of what you've done previously, then you'll be able to orchestrate and manage it accordingly. But overall, it's not the book doesn't really always like sit with me. It's got to be with the people in the team that can help drive it forward. I couldn't do it alone. But yeah. Like I said, it's bringing all of that together and making sure the customer doesn't see what's happening behind the scenes, and the customer still receives the service that they're paying for.
Yeah, I love that, and it's like you said, kind of if you're leaning a little more, kind of what are you doing for the customer and then the business, you get kind of that customer centric mindset, and especially from operations perspective, you can kind of get that outside of not just in customer success and account management, but other functions within the company. And then now you're starting to really become a little bit more customer focused in your mindset as a business. So I think that's a great approach to it within your role. And Joe, let me kind of take a back a step here, because I was, as you were talking about, customer success, account management within your functions and putting the right people in place. You spoke about the customer success in the Middle East here. I was asking. And it's obviously evolving, right? I always like to say Middle East is kind of right now where the US was maybe 3-4 years ago, where Europe was about 2-3 years ago. So it's kind of progressing and taking those strides. How do you see customer success evolving? And maybe, touch on kind of that transition from, support success to, revenue, and how you see that transition here going on right now and into the future.
To be honest with you, it's growing. From my perspective, I've worked with customers in Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi, and Dubai, and Abu Dhabi. Um, Dubai and Abu Dhabi are a bit more mature. But in terms of the other GCC countries and Saudi, kind of, that's where they really want to rely on their partners and essentially their vendors. So the transition from the whole life cycle, they heavily rely on your judgment, on your decision makings, and they put so much faith and trust and, I would say, a responsibility on you to make their decision on behalf of them. Because as we see, the technology is rapidly evolving significantly to the point where it's pretty scary because people can't keep up. So never mind actually coming into a region where they're really kind of looking at, some companies are already looking at the cloud, for example. And then you've got America and Europe and everywhere else where the cloud's been there for the last 10 years, if not more. So a lot of companies at the moment, certain kind of SMBs that we work with, they require a lot of hand holding in that respect, making sure they're doing the right decisions, right for the business, not necessarily it's right for our sake. It's more putting ourselves in their lens, in their perspective, to understand what is their core problems and where they're currently at and what knowledge they're lacking and where we can fill in gaps. So from going from start literally to the moment you open the door to speak to the potential new customer, to closing and then upselling and moving forward, it all comes down from the trust element. If you build this and they see what your decision making and your positioning is valuable, and they trust you, then that will significantly accelerate. And it's coming more and more apart, more and more important in the likes of the other countries, Kuwait, Qatar, and Arabia, because they're quite far behind in relation to the UAE. And they're quite far behind. So trust in Europe. We tell ourselves, when we're speaking to customers, we act as their strategic advisor. We don't mean to say we're an implementation partner. We just want to come in and implement the solution and then go away. We are trusted strategic advisor, and therefore you can rely on us for any kind of requirement you need, whether that's just a call to flush out some knowledge that you don't understand, or whether that's actually a proposition of a solution that you need to fulfill a certain business need.
I would agree with that, Joe, as well. And I feel like there is a lot of frustration from companies who are trying to break into the Middle East.
Yeah.
If they don't understand that it's going to take time to build relationships, then they're going to be very frustrated. And I think I've seen this with many companies, and I've seen this even with the current company that I work with, is that the sales cycle takes way much more longer. When it comes down to procurement, takes much more longer. I mean, I'm used to very high in very fast pace. It's coming from the US. So I think this is something definitely that it's worth exploring before you're trying to come into the Middle East and thinking that things are going to happen fast.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe, I did a little bit of homework on Cloudworks. Now, I'm not an expert on cloud, but I'm with an expert right now. And I wanted to ask you a little bit. So I saw that at Cloudworks, you guys are focusing on hybrid and multi-cloud visibility.
Yeah.
How do you approach customer success differently when dealing with enterprises managing complex legacy to cloud transitions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's an interesting one, right? Because usually when you go in from a customer success angle, 9 times out of 10, it's usually business process led. It's not really infrastructure led. It's more people, business process, and then the infrastructure is really far down the line. So the customer success really comes into when we're first looking at, so 9 times out of 10, we have a list of customers that are already looking to change their legacy systems, because a lot of them are running on premise, and therefore it's costing the business X amount percentage per year. And the way technology is evolving, the way the business wants to try and accelerate and be more efficient by integrating new systems, by integrating new processes, sometimes the legacy systems cannot hold that, and therefore they need to change their legacy operating system in order to kind of maximize their returns on investment. And so there's a strapline that we say at Cloudworks. We put IT economics at the heart of IT modernization. And when we mean by modernize, we look at kind of the decision making, the financial costs to the business. We look at kind of the benefits of moving to the cloud. We look at how we can optimize our processes. We look at how we can reduce the, I would say, manual effort within the organization, et cetera, and the business performance as a whole. So that's where we look at how can we modernize your IT in order to accelerate in these areas. And the angle that we take, it's not necessarily here's a cloud solution, here's a multi. So when we say multi-cloud, there's many different cloud partners that we work with. AWS being our main one, but Google, obviously, then you've got Google Cloud, you've got Azure, which is Microsoft, and then you've got other competitors, which is SAP. They have their own, and then also Oracle. So there's a lot of kind of multi-cloud solutions out there. It's just the right one, which is right for that company based on the size of the company, the size of the people, the size of their data, and the size of kind of their overall IT estate. So how we approach it and how we try to incorporate the customer success element is we look at the right solution for them. We assess their current estate. We assess where their current pain points are is actually the main focal point of where we address the solution fit for purpose. We look at where they want to maximize the value on investment in terms of the return. So what return are they looking for? Are they looking for financial aspects? Are they looking to save profit in these other areas? Are they looking for to integrate a new ERP, which is a huge enterprise resourcing planning tool? Are they looking to integrate a whole new kind of SaaS products? And what solution would be fit to be integrated on top of that for it to run? So we do that. We take that angle and approach. So we come more from a top-down perspective. So we don't just say, here's the infrastructure and everything can plug on top. We say, okay, where do you want to get to from a top perspective, and where are the business process issues that you're encountering? Because the ultimate solution can certainly accelerate these pain points and certainly kind of mitigate as well some of the frustrations that you're having. And if it's a financial return that you're looking for, this is a fit. This is the right solution for you. And so infrastructure, cloud, we also specialize kind of in strategy. So that's why I've talked around, it's not just more than infrastructure, multi-cloud solutions that we provide. It's more the strategy lens and perspective, which we also cater for. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Wow. No, and what I'm loving about hearing you talk, Joe, is that at the center of everything is the customer.
Yeah.
And I really love what you said about the 51%, on the side of the customer, and then the 49% on your company. I absolutely love that. I wanted to ask you, so from looking at your background, I've seen that you've worked with both government agencies, DWP Digital, and in England, and then some private enterprises. How does your approach to customer success differ between these sectors, particularly in the Middle East? Because now you reside here.
Yeah, so it's interesting because the government in the UK is huge. So to put it into perspective, their current kind of IT spend was just over $500 million a year. So the magnitude of change, the magnitude of kind of adoption of new tools, business process transformation programs, they would take years because it's so big. The size of the company, the size of the government department had over 140,000 people in there. So obviously the DWP serves over 24 million citizens of the UK. So the services that they provide and the significance of change and new digital transformations and adoptions, upskilling, and the knowledge across any new IT kind of product being integrated into the government had to go through significant protocols and checks for them to make sure it's fit, not right for the IT department, but right for the citizens. So we always had to put a lens on our in in the government to say, what, from a user experience perspective, how would the citizen react to this process? Or how would, for example, the civil servant behind the interaction before the citizen, how would the civil servant be able to execute their job in order to serve the citizen? So it was a whole different lens, and we had to really cement ourselves in our shoes to understand that in order to make sure what we were building and developing within the government was fit for purpose in order to deliver X, Y, and Z. And so we did a huge IT service management change program, which went on for 2.5 years. And we rolled out that across all the users. We had to do a whole new adoption. The program was over $30 million at what it costs to the department. However, it was so, I would say, beneficial to not only the civil servants who was operating, they could maximize their time. They could be more efficient with serving the citizens. They could get the right information when needed at the right time in the right place to serve the citizen, because beforehand, everything was very manual. Nothing was centralized. And we built a huge omni-channel service that could serve them. So the cultural aspect was very different, right? So it was very different because we were serving a really meaningful purpose towards citizens that needed the service. Out here, I've worked with FSIs predominantly and sovereign wealth funds, and then enterprises across Saudi and Abu Dhabi. And the cultural difference here was just more of, we need to get this service in fundamentally, regardless of whatever the outcome is, right? They wanted to just, for example, I worked on huge IT service management transformations because their IT service management at the time was outdated, and therefore they needed to serve around about 2,000 users within the banks. We rolled that out, and it just maximized the return on, I would say, the users internally of the bank to report service desk tickets, find knowledge base articles when needed, speak to a customer service channel when required. It wasn't necessarily serving a citizen, for example. It was more for internal purposes. And the cultural difference there was, we need the solution just to fit our needs. That's it. So the mindset shift here was, right, okay, we now need to just deliver a solution to fit the bank's needs, and therefore plug and play and away they go. Beforehand, it was all about the user experience. So it was more around the bank's experience versus the actual end goal of the user experience. They were more focused on their solutions as operating as a company, not necessarily user experience. This side with government was more user focused, user centric. So I found with projects out here, they're not very user centric as working across. It's fun. I know in other change programs, I'm sure they are very user centric, but the clients that I've served so far haven't been that user centric so far. And I don't know whether that's just because it's not necessarily one of their key priorities or key requirements for the business. It's not a business KPI. It doesn't fulfill the needs of what the solution they're buying is required. But fundamentally, that's kind of this change where we have to just think of, right, okay, what does the business need more so than what does the user need?
That's super interesting. Yeah, I think that's great as well. Like it's speaks to maturity, right, of the market and where businesses are in terms of priorities, and as they progress, I'm sure more and more with that will kind of transform into that user centric kind of idea as well around it. But yeah, and it's that.
It goes back to the point before in terms of maturity of customers. Obviously you're here, you've only been here for a year, 4 months, and you're probably seeing there's not a big customer success community. It's like if you go back to the States, UI, UX, user researchers, business analysis, all UI front led, that market and that focus in every company is pretty much, I would say, more important than their internal processes, right? Yeah. And out here, it's not.
Opposite.
We're not there yet.
Yeah.
And if, for example, you look at the banks, look at the bank applications, the bank applications are not user-friendly in any shape or form.
I agree there.
The process, they are user-friendly.
Yeah,
I agree. No, it's definitely the case, and I think it's it's kind of part customer centricity, it's part technology advancement, it's part process, right? And all of those things are kind of still developing in a lot of ways. And it also, which, I'm not surprised, based off of what I've seen in the market recently and also previous years when I've been here, and when we said earlier, kind of UAE a little bit further along technology-wise has more of that kind of global influence of businesses, and then Saudi is now getting there a little bit more, and some other GCC countries are still developing it. So I think that will continue to increase, which is great. I think one piece of that, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Obviously, the big topic out there is in every sector, every instance is around AI, right? And how that will help continue that transformation. And kind of to what we just talked about, I see more and more that also on the cloud side, right? Like in terms of cloud management and digital transformation that's happening, AI is taking a bigger role. How do you see AI play a role in that change or the cloud management aspect of things? And especially, when it comes to the Middle East region, right? And is that starting to become a part of that conversation and trickling in? And does that impact how you approach customer success and account management and working with customers, right? That kind of new demand of AI and how that's impacting the core services or technologies that you're providing.
Yeah, I think it's very important to highlight go back to the point of maturity of customers. For example, you look at G42 here in Abu Dhabi, they're pretty much building their own cloud. They're building their own AI capability. They just had 2 point something billion in investment from Microsoft into their initiatives, into their program. And it's really, really accelerating. The maturity of customers, I would say, in other parts, and even some here, right? I think the one thing when they hear a buzzword AI, I really want to jump onto AI. It will maximize X, Y, and Z. But fundamentally, there's a lot of areas within the data modeling. So AI needs to some balloons. AI needs to really run off solid data in terms of what I mean by that, clean data, especially, and obviously then that will accelerate automation, that will accelerate machine learning, etc., etc. But if the data is not right, the foundation is not correct, then how are the others going to operate? How are the other solutions going to be able to be more efficient and actually get the benefit out of the solution? And we're finding with many customers, the data is not correct. So when they're saying they want AI plugged in, it's like, yeah, but you give me a solution, what you're going to use AI for. I'm going to use AI to generate support tickets or look at my patching, for example. All right, now let's look at your data, where the data discrepancies. And before you know it, there's a bigger challenge here for the data aspect. We did a huge program in QA, and I would say out of the 12 months, 8 of them months, maybe 9, spent on data cleansing. Before, this is all the SAP, so it's all kind of a transformational piece for new processes being integrated. It wasn't from an American perspective and Europe's perspective, it was no kind of Gen AI kind of led services. It was pretty much standard IT service services and processes. And when the data element is significant in order to maximize their AI return. And we've had a few customers that really want to look at AI, and we said, look, we will be an AI advocate, but we're not AI specialists, so we lean on partners for the right conversations. We can sit there and talk around, well, we've been using ChatGPT, but fundamentally what is the backbone and what can it do for businesses is where we're learning, and obviously I would say advising where we see fit. But at the moment, with the level of maturity of customers that we've currently got, it's more of actually understanding the benefits of AI, and it's mature enough for AI. What you're talking to us right now is way before you even look at AI.
Yeah, right.
You're looking at ARPs, you're looking at cloud. AI is further down the line once you've got all of these running at 100%, and you're maximizing that return. And it's important because I keep saying maximizing return because a lot of people just want to invest in the money and then expect the return. It doesn't work like that. You've got to put the work in as well to make sure you get that right return. And in order to do that, data cleansing is where you got to start. we've got an initiative at the moment where we go again from top down. We look at the strategy, we look at the process, we look at the data, and then we look at the right solution. And then if AI can be plugged in once they've cleansed that data, then we would advise it. But in terms of kind of UEE, obviously they're a different trajectory at the moment. They've got a lot of capabilities here, and they're pretty much more advanced than other countries. And so, in the previous companies that I worked for across Abu Dhabi, they had an in-house AI initiative already. Then this was 3 years ago. I've been working for FSIs in Saudi Arabia, huge $1 trillion banks, and AI was not on the topic 3 years ago. So it gives you an indication of where they are on the AI kind of radar, and what is important to them at that time.
No, I mean I think you bring us so many good points there, right? And that all makes a lot of sense. I mean, I see it as well. Just at Repsol, for example, we have a lot of AI capabilities and built in, and then you speak to customers, and as they're looking to leverage, predictive trend analysis and things of that nature, and all this comes down to data, right? Like you can. Because AI is layered. You need data for the modeling to make sure the model is great. You need a data layer to make sure you can process all the other data that you need for the whatever the AI should be doing for you, Gen AI or agents or whatnot. And you need the customer's data to be plentiful and also accurate and available, right? I think a lot of times we kind of envision AI within businesses to be very chat GPT. I can just drop in my query, I get my response, and I'm good to go. But all the kind of secret sauce behind it, all the computing power and the data, we kind of forget about.
100%.
That goes into that.
Right? It's the basics that some companies forget. The shiny toys are for. And there was one example where I was working for, working for the consultancy firm on a big program for one of the big banks out in Saudi Arabia, and they had an outage, and it impacted over 2 million kind of users, even access their banks, and no one knew about the outage,
right?
Because the processes and the data that's being transmitted and
right wasn't accurate.
How it all connects, it didn't actually funnel into the right area of where they should have been alerted. It didn't the right customer service desk and so forth, and it took them a while to get the service back up and running. And that's just an example. And they had about 5 different databases with all different discrepancies in the data. So our role before we even started the program were, there's no point in touching this. We need all of this data cleaning.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and it does have a huge impact on the end result. Bad data in, bad outputs out. That's always been the case dating way back before AI. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm just kind of curious, just as we're on AI and kind of technology a little bit as well, how do you see, whether that's on your end and the companies that you work for or the companies that you guys advise, how do you see technology impacting or helping customer success, right? Specifically, like whether that's CS platforms or different technologies for the customer management, how are you seeing that kind of playing out?
Yeah, it's a good question. To be honest with you, I haven't really delved into that, but from what I'm seeing in the market, I was recently at a conference called Mind Valley, and there were essentially there was all different conversations happening, and this lady from the States, she's built her own AI clone, and she essentially had her own AI clone serving her customers on the customer service desk. Essentially, it covered all of her characteristics, her persona, her tone of voice, the way she spoke, and it was mind blowing. Where someone from the audience got up on stage and spoke to the AI agent on the laptop, and the AI agent was responding back. Well, it's a clone of her, and it just goes to show how quick things are accelerating. AI will play a huge part in customer success in delivering the service when humans can't, and immediate response times to sort of queries. And it's certainly kind of also from a CRM perspective, even internally from an operation, I think AI could really help kind of push sales in order to push further customer success. Green Matter is automating certain significant processes internally, building out an AI kind of CRM capability where it knows your customer, it knows everything about that customer from top to bottom of who the people are and who you really speak to about what certain conversations and what certain topics, and not only about business related, but also personal related. Because AI will be able to collect all this data from everywhere and be able to build a persona of that individual in a CRM. I think that's where things will go from a CRM perspective as well. And but yeah, from a customer success, it's all about the immediate response times, and it's all about the right response. And there'll be so many AI tools that will kind of help generate and accelerate that at a huge pace. The AI cloning just blew my mind. I'm just thinking this is taking customer success to a different level. And the guy who built the cloning, so it's called DeFi, AI DeFi. He built this business based out of the States, and essentially he does not take any customer calls. Which in my head, as a customer success manager, I'm like, what? So you have your AI bot just control all of your customer success conversations, or just like customer query conversations? And he was like, yeah, I do. I only get on the calls when the AI has identified there's an issue that AI can't really resolve and it requires immediate attention.
Right.
It filters out all the noise of what you get from customers, like, for example, a customer service desk or the email complaints, and it picks out which ones are the most important to you. And there's a few kind of elements where you'd have to program it and say, this is important, that's important, blah, blah, blah. But it will remember all of that, and it will help accelerate time at a different speed.
For sure.
So yeah, I think from a customer success, I think we've got to take it in our hands to look at how we can maximize our time and serve the right customers who are investing their time in us.
Yeah, makes total sense.
I love that. 100%. I'm looking forward to how AI can definitely help me to be more productive in my role. And in general, I feel like customer success managers, they're constantly having to pivot and change gears and whatnot. And I feel like there is room for us to be able to focus strategically on things that are actually going to bring the most. So, Joe, I wanted to ask you, with all your experience, going back to your experience of living here in the Middle East and also living in the UK and managing large scale transformations in the UK, I know we spoke about some cultural considerations to have while managing clients, such as building trust and taking time and whatnot. Are there any other cultural considerations? Let's say somebody who would be listening to this podcast that is trying to break into the Middle East. What other cultural considerations would you say influence the way that you approach this region?
Don't be bullish and don't be too direct. Just because I've seen this happen before in certain conversations, and not many people are a big lover of that. And greet them in their mother tongue. I would say that is one big cultural difference. Don't just greet them in your language, that what you know. If they're Arabic, greet them in Arabic, because it goes so much. Like, I can't even tell you the scale of, for example, when I started moving and I didn't know much Arabic, I started learning Arabic to greet them in Arabic, and the differences of the reception that you receive, even if, for example, everyone in that room could speak English, and the person there is Arabic or Lebanese, Jordan, or Emirati, just greet them, and that really, really helps. Like, you wouldn't probably do it usually, but even if you're in the streets and you're walking past, or you're going through the government offices to do your visa, for example, just greet them in their mother tongue. That is a huge, big cultural difference that I've seen. I know it's respectful to go anywhere else in the country and do it, but here they really take it into consideration, because a lot of people do refer to speaking English. I've been in board meeting rooms and people, for the sake of me being there, everyone's been a Saudi local, they all stop speaking Arabic and they speak English. And I feel betrayal. I feel like I'm so disrespecting your religion and your culture here. I should really know the language. And I've even said that at a ballroom before, and everyone's like, no, you're a guest. People are very respectful. Just be very respectful for people's time. I think there's so much meetings going on. Just be a lot more respectful and be more very more focused on listening to them, and not you doing most of the talking. I think that's also paramount in terms of the cultural aspects. Everyone used to talk over each other. But yeah, there was respect, but I think out here it's more sort of listening rather than talking, and then talk when required. So I've seen that difference. But all of these cultural differences really started to come into fruition when I started traveling to and from Saudi for 2 years. I did that especially for a year. I did that for a week on, week off, and I learned a lot about the Middle Eastern kind of business. And obviously with Saudi Arabia booming, UAE is very westernized in certain areas, and there's a lot of companies here with a lot of European, American, Western people in there already operating. So 9 times out of 10, you go in and just greet them as you normally would if you were back in the UK or Europe or America. But when you're in Saudi Arabia, that's not the case. And same with Kuwait. So you got to understand kind of you're in their home, so let them speak, and also giving them the time. Don't just go in there and say, I can give you X, because that doesn't work. Yeah.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah, it definitely rings true. I mean, I think we talked about trust and relationships earlier. We see that a ton. It makes a huge difference. I mean, myself, I speak Arabic, but I've done business most of my life in English, or even here. We're just kind of starting the conversations and the chit chat in Arabic, and then switch over to English to really dig into the business side. It makes a big difference. I think you kind of put the other side at ease, and
yeah.
a big part of but even even just kind of being able to greet people in Arabic, or kind of showing that you're invested in terms of kind of the cultural aspect and being in the Middle East, I think is big. And maybe companies coming to Ivy's question, kind of you're coming to the Middle East region, just being on the ground is a huge advantage or plus, where there's some companies that try to kind of do it from a distance, which is really, really hard to break in here, and being, back in the US or in the UK or somewhere else, and kind of try and do it remotely. So I think that's huge.
But also, you'll probably notice everyone goes off time back in the UK and back in America. Time is not necessarily as important here.
Yeah.
It's the clocks are completely different, right? So especially I experienced this in Saudi Arabia a lot more than I did here in Dubai. But the time just will vanish, and it doesn't really phase them, right? Here we're very punctual with our timing. Very, very punctual, to the point where if we're a minute late, we're mortified. We're like, oh my God. I am, that's me, and that's always been me.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm very punctual, and
Yeah.
make sure I'm on time. If I'm running 2 minutes late, I'll message them. Here, people will rock up 15, 20 minutes late, and they're just like, Assalamu alaikum, it's good to see you.
Yeah,
and then you just, at first, I'm like, I'm mortified. You're late, and then doesn't register with them at all. Doesn't register it, to the point where I would have to wait sometimes for customers up until 8 p.m. to get a meeting with some C-levels, and even at 8 p.m. I'll be there in the office. There'll be no one there, and they'll still rock up at 8:30. And you just be kicking yourself, thinking it is what it is. And also that gets a lot worse during Ramadan and Eid.
Of course, yeah. We're coming up to there soon as well, in a few weeks. Awesome, Joe. Well, and speaking of time, we're getting towards the end of our episode here today. It's been such time been literally flying by here. It's been a very, very interesting conversation. I think touching on a lot of really nice areas. So thank you for delving into all those different things. What we want to do at the end with our guests, we have kind of this little section where we go through some quick hitters, questions, and kind of quick responses, get your thoughts on a few things. And I like to start us off. I have a couple questions that I'd love to always ask our guests, and I know Ivy has a couple of our own. So, Joe, if you feel ready, I'll kind of get us going here with a couple of quick hitters for you.
Yeah, sure. Do I need to write in a diary as well, like diary CEO?
Exactly. Yeah, that's the post show. Then we'll bring out the diary as well. No, that's good. All right. So, Joe, I'll start us out easy here. My first question to you: what's your kind of favorite content to consume right now? Podcasts, books, etc. Any specific one you want to shout out?
Books.
Books, yeah.
The book I'm listening to is Jay Shetty, Think Like a Monk. I
Mm.
recommend. Very kind of spiritual and gives you a whole different perspective on life, from a values, morals, and even kind of a mindset.
That's awesome. Yeah, very good recommendation. Okay, perfect. Next one. Favorite people or person to follow, get inspiration from? Any specific one or people that you would want to shout out?
Who do I follow Stephen Bartlett just because I've met him a few times before he was even big, and I've pretty much grown up with him from his content, so to speak, not him physically. There's also kind of, who else do I like to follow? Mel Robbins, she's got some good content as well. Very fascinated by her content. There's also these. There's Tony Robbins, which I follow on a regular basis, who is obviously everyone knows Tony Robbins at this moment. There's another guy called Robin Sharma. He wrote 5am Club, I think that, and the monk who sold his Ferrari, blah blah blah. I went to a conference not so long ago and saw him, and I really would recommend following his content, especially if you really want to energize your mornings and get focused for the day. He gives you nice snippets on Spotify of these 2-minute little snippets of just channeling your focus for the day, and would highly recommend a morning routine. And he really kind of advocates that. So I follow him. Yeah.
Awesome. Very
Wow.
nice. Very good recommendations there. Some good content across the board. Mel, especially I think is good. Awesome. So my last one for you, Joe, here, if you can kind of pick one thing, kind of top level, your favorite prediction for 2025, as we're kind of starting the year, more or less still, what would that be?
I think there will be more AIs, agents, or bots to identify true information. So right now, there's a lot of information out there which are all congesting and all reading, which is AI pretty much probably generated, and we don't know if it's true or false. I think there's going to be an informational kind of, I would say, AI bots that's going to be released into 2025 to control that information and to control and predict what's going to be essentially true versus a false. And it's just to prevent misinformation element, because I think at the moment that obviously accelerated a couple of years back with social media. AI bots are now accelerating information at a rapid rate where our brains just can't keep up. How is that going to be monitored and tracked? And I think that would be an interesting one to follow for the 2025.
Yeah,
Oh,
very interesting.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. All right, Joe. I'm going to ask you my favorite question that I get so excited every time we have any guest. So the question is, what is one life philosophy you like to live by?
I really advocate for morning routines. I know it's not really like a statement quote, but my morning routine is pretty much, if I don't do my morning routine, my day's already failed. But the main focus I always focus on is just the 1% per day. I think that's an area everyone should focus on, especially if you've got a big list and you don't know where to start. Just focus on the 1%. The non-negotiables that you need to get done for that day, and that's just one item. The rest will fall. So I always plan that in the mornings, and that's why I always say morning routine. So morning routine, if it's fitness, it's to walk, if it's clear your mind, set yourself for the day and journal. Then you can be focused for the remaining of the day.
Yeah, I love the 1%. It's really amazing. It sounds less overwhelming that you have to crush your day. And I agree with you. Morning routine sets your whole entire day.
It should come
100%.
to
I
mind,
never miss
actually.
it.
This was years ago. I was again. I like to go into talks, and the guy said, You own your day. Don't let the day own you. And I always think about that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love
And
that.
what I mean by that is obviously don't let busyness control your outputs for that day and
Yeah.
move your
Yeah.
focus for that day. And that is stuck with me for years.
I love this, Joe, because honestly, the morning routine is all about getting in the right mindset and not just rolling out of bed and getting on your computer. It's actually, if you go on a workout, you're putting yourself through something that you had to pull yourself out of the bed to go to workout. You feel much better. You're just going to win your day if you win your morning. I love that. And Joe, when you're not at work, what are you up to on the weekends? And if people really want to connect with you, where can they find you?
There's a CrossFit gym called DIP Elevate. That's where I am for a lot of the time. I just love fitness, so I'm always at the down at the Elevate gym. Which is we call it
Oh, nice.
all as many people are. They're always down Kite Beach running, so that's where I am a lot of the time. And beautiful place to run, so I do enjoy the running aspect,
Yeah.
but mainly outdoors. Ivy. So
Nice.
the next time we meet, guys, we should go for a walk.
For sure. Let's do it.
Yes, definitely. Awesome.
Amazing.
People can find me on LinkedIn, of course, as everyone. So I'll be on LinkedIn.
Yeah. We'll make sure we tag your LinkedIn as well so that
Amazing.
people can find you.
Perfect. Joe, it's been great. Such a pleasant conversation. Like I said earlier, learned a ton, and thank you so much for joining us today and providing all your perspectives. And yeah, hope to see you back soon on the pod and dig into even more these great topics with you.
No,
Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you. We want to thank our sponsors for supporting the Success Revenue podcast. RevSetter is the #1 customer success and management platform in the Middle East region, offering global capabilities mixed with regional solutions that helps your CS, account management, and go-to-market teams 10x efficiency, improve customer experience, and turbocharge customer retention rates.
And thank you to Medlify, a leading marketplace. Workers and employers in the healthcare space needs and demands meet to create benefits for both sides. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.